And we are live. Welcome to another Monday night Chassidut as we are continuing to learn about Inyanei mashiach geulah. So we're in chapter 29. So we're learning about the revelation of Mashiach, right? And we said that there's different levels and different stages of the revelation, so to speak, right? And so the Rebbe Rashab, there's the power of the kingship in the soul, so to speak, where this is a very spiritual, so to speak. Then you have when he's actually crowned with the crown of kingship, then he's called Melech. That's the second stage, and then we said the third is already Hanagat Malchut, literal actions of a king, right? So the actions that a king takes, right? And so the Rebbe Rashab brought the example of Shaul HaMelech. We also had the example before of David HaMelech. And so this is the idea where we have all of this. And in the last week, we concluded that the fact so this is by Shlomo HaMelech, this was also true, right? That when he was crowned, there was only some people, and not everyone who announced Yechiya Melech about "Long live the King" for Shlomo HaMelech. And only afterwards, later he became fully the king, and then he was crowned again before the people, and in front of everyone, and then he was actually ruling, obviously, right? So that's a short summary of what we learned last week. So now, let's talk about this week's, which is the Galut Mashiach B'Doreinu, the revelation of Mashiach in our generation, right? כנ"ל בפרקים הקודמים, בכללות אפשר לומר שכוח המשיח הקיים בכל דור נמצא בגלוי יותר אצל כל רבותינו נשיאנו מבעל שם טוב ואילך. And as we said in previous chapters, that in general you could say that the power, right, the potential, so to speak, of Mashiach that exists in every generation is more revealed by our Rebbeim, starting from the Baal Shem Tov and afterwards. Which is through them was revealed the Yechidah within the Torah. What is the Yechidah within the Torah? That is the Torah Hasidut. The Yechidah of Israel and the unity, the unity pointed in the Jewish people. And the unity of the Jewish people, and this is the beginning of the revelation of the general Yechidah, the idea of the general unity part of the soul, which is the soul of Mashiach. When we're talking about the soul of Mashiach, we're talking about the final Mashiach. This is the soul of the person who will literally redeem the Jewish people. ולכן התגלות משיח אמורה כאן, היינו שמתעורר ברצון לגאול את ישראל בפועל ממש, שזה לא היה בדורות שלפני דורנו זה. So, the revelation of Mashiach that we're talking about, meaning you have this desire to redeem the Jewish people in actuality, and this wasn't in the same level in the generations before this generation. אומנם בנוגע לדורנו ישנם ביטויים ישירים מהרבי. However, about our generation, there are very clear words from the Rebbe. Besichat Shabbat Parashat Vayera Tafshin in the Sicha of Shabbat Parashat Vayera, Hashgacha Pratit, this is the parsha we're learning this week. It's always wonderful when what we learn matches with the parsha, and so we've had several times. So this is what the Rebbe speaks about in Vayera, so it's even more applicable. Mashiach is always applicable to us, but how much more so that this is the parsha of the week. ובלשונו, קיימת גם מציאות של משיח כפשוטו, יחידה כללית. There is also the reality of Mashiach in the simple meaning, יחידה כללית. כידוע שבכל דור ודור נולד אחד מזרע יהודה שהוא ראוי להיות משיח לישראל. It's known from every generation there is born one from the seed of Yehuda who is worthy to be the redeemer of the Jewish people, Mashiach for the Jewish people. אחד הראוי מצדקתו להיות גואל, one who's worthy and righteous enough to be the redeemer. לכשיגיע הזמן, יגלה אליו השם, we're getting listened to in Australia, ברוך השם. כשיגיע הזמן, יגלה אליו השם יתברך וישלחו. When the time will come, Hashem will reveal him. He will reveal himself, and Hashem will send him. ואילו לא היו מתערבים עניינים בלתי רצויים המונים מעכבים, היה מתגלה ובא בפועל ממש. So if they were not interfering these things that are unwanted and delay, then he will be revealed immediately. ועל פי הודעת כבוד קדושת מורי וחמי אדמו"ר נשיא דורנו, משיח שבדורנו, the Rebbe would often refer to the Frierdiker Rebbe as the leader of our generation, the mashiach of our generation. So based on the hoda'ah, the message of the Frierdiker Rebbe, the leader of our generation, the mashiach of our generation, שכבר נסתיימו ונשלמו כל ימי עבודה. All the services, all the work is already done. ועומדים מוכנים לקבלת פני משיח תיקנו. We stand and we're ready to receive the face of Mashiach. הרי בימינו אלו נתבטלו כל המניעות והעיכובים. Meaning everything that is stopping us, everything that is delaying has already been nullified. וכיוון שכן ישנה לא רק המציאות למשיח, אלא גם ההתגלות של משיח. And this is why in our generation there's not just the reality of Mashiach. Okay? The reality of Mashiach, אלא גם התגלות משיח. No, there's the revelation of Mashiach in our generation. ועכשיו צריכים רק לקבל פני משיח תתקן בפועל ממש. And now what is left is to receive the face of Mashiach, תתקנו literally, in actual words. מתוכן הדברים ברור שהתגלות משיח אמורה כאן כדבר בהווה, אינה התגלות מופשטת של עניין, בחינה ומצב של משיח. So we can understand this revelation of Mashiach that is spoken about here, it's in the present tense. This is not past tense. And it's not just an idea of Mashiach or an attribute of Mashiach or a state of Mashiach. אלא הכוונה להתגלותו של אדם מסוים שבו יש כוח משיח. No, the literal meaning, the meaning of this is a specific person that within him, he has the power of Mashiach. נשיא דורנו משיח שבדורנו. In the words of the Rebbe, the leader of our generation is the Mashiach of our generation. והוא התגלה, and he's revealing, becoming revealed. ולכאורה משמעותה של התגלות זוהי על דרך התגלות מציאותו בתור מלך המשיח המבוארת לעיל. And seemingly, the meaning of this revelation is by the way of the revelation of his reality as the Melech HaMashiach that is explained above. שכוח המשיח שבו יוצא מאלה מן הגילוי ברצון ופעולות להביא גאולה פה ממש. So as we said, there were three states. There's the power, the potential of Mashiach, and that certainly in every generation, and certainly even more so, you could see the potential in our last generation. But then there's and this is just the power of Mashiach. But then there is the second level already. The power of Mashiach comes out of the concealment and is revealed. And then there's the third, which is the actions to bring the redemption literally. And so this is the power of Mashiach that is talked about here, is that it becomes revealed with the desire and the action to bring the redemption literally. This is why now the name Mashiach applies properly to this, right? It's no longer just that he is the Nasi. No, it's a Mashiach in our generation. ולפי זה ההמשך שכעת צריכים רק לקבל פני משיח תתקן בפועל ממש. So based on this, it continues, and now we need to receive Mashiach Titkenu בפועל, which is using an action, with action, so to speak, ממש, literally. יתפרש על דרך התגלותו להם הכל על ידי פעולותיו. What does it mean בפועל? פועל is the same root as פעולותיו, his actions. What does it mean? When we say בפועל ממש, it means he'll be revealed to everyone through his action, פעולותיו, the same root as פועל. היינו שהגילוי הרוחני שנשמע משיח צדקנו ימשך ויתקבל בעולם העשייה הגשמי, עולם הפעולות הממשי. So, the idea that the spiritual revelation of the soul of Mashiach Tzidkenu is going to be continued and received in this physical world, the world of the literal of actions. ודברים דומים מאוד אומר הרבי בשבוע שלאחר מכן בשיחת שבת פרשת חיי שרה תשנ"ב. And now we're moving to next week's already, but similar thing the Rebbe says in the week after in פרשת חיי שרה תשנ"ב. בכל דור ודור נולד אחד מזרע יהודה שהוא ראוי להיות משיח לישראל. The Rebbe says in every generation is born one from the seed of Yahweh who is worthy to be the Mashiach to the Jewish people. אחד הראוי מצדקתו להיות גואל, וכשיגיע הזמן יגלה אליו השם, יתברר וישלחו וכולי. And again, he uses almost the same words as previous week. one that is worthy from his righteousness to be the Redeemer. And when the time comes, Hashem will reveal to him and send him to redeem the Jewish people. ועל פי הודעת כבוד קדושת מורי וחמי אדמו"ר נשיא דורנו, השליח היחיד שבדורנו, המשיח היחיד שבדורנו, שכבר סיימו את כל העבודה, הרי מובן שמתחיל להתקיים השלח נא ביאת השלח. So the Rebbe says, based on the announcement of the Frierdiker Rebbe, the leader of our generation, the only messenger in our generation, the only mashiach in our generation, we already completed all the service. It's understood, I move on, that we start, shlachna beyat shalach, we already started fulfilling, send with your hand, you should send him. Ashlichut shel kvod kedushat mori v'chami admor, the message being the shlichum of the Frierdiker Rebbe, ומזה מובן שהדבר היחיד שנשאר עכשיו בעבודת שליחות הוא לקבל פני משיח צדקנו ממש. So what is left? The only thing we have left at this point in our service of shlichut is to receive the face of Mashiach tzidkenu, literally. כדי שיוכל לקיים שליחותו. Why? When we receive the face of Mashiach, we welcome Mashiach, he can fulfill his shlichut from Hashem. And what is it that? להוציא את כל ישראל מהגלות, to take us out of this exile. וגם כאן תובן כוונתו על דרך הנעל, כי שלח נא ביד תשלח, זוהי בקשת משה מהקדוש ברוך הוא, שישלח מלך משיח. More so, we can understand what are the words shlach na b'yad teshalach, send please with your hand you should send. This is Moshe Rabbeinu's request from Hashem that you should send the Melech HaMashiach. כמבואר בתחילת אותה שיחה, כשהרב אומר שמתחיל להתקיים השלח נא ביד תשלח, הכוונה היא שמשיח צדקנו כבר קיבל אותה שליחות ומילוי אלוקי שיגלה אליו השם דברים ושלחו. So what does it mean that the Rebbe says we already start fulfilling the send please with your hand you should send? Meaning, when Mashiach already received the shlichut, and he was already told by God that God already revealed himself to him and sent him to go start redeeming the Jewish people. ולכן כעת חסר רק שיקיים שליחותו בפועל ויוציא את כל ישראל מהגלות. So now, what is lacking? The only thing that's lacking is now the actual fulfillment of this shlichut, in actuality, in the physical world, to take out all the Jews from exile. So, ביאור דברים אלו כפי הבנתנו. So now he's going to go explain based on how he understands. בי"א שבט תשי"א הואיל נשיא דורנו ליטול על עצמו את האחריות להנהגת הדת חסידי חב"ד ולשבת על כיסא אבותיו. On י"א שבט תשי"א, the leader of our generation took upon himself the leadership of Chabad and sat on the chair of his forefathers. וכבר באותו יום במאמרו הראשון הצהיר בצורה ברורה את חזונו הגדול והבהיר את משמעות של תפקיד שנטל לעצמו. הבאת הגאולה בפועל ממש. Yudal Shvat, right? So the same day, the first mimer, the Rebbe showed what is his vision, what is the meaning of the role that he took upon himself. His role was to bring the redemption. And it's very simple. You compare the 7 generations of Chabad to the 7 righteous people from Avraham until Moshe Rabbeinu. Avraham echel u'Moshe siyem. Avraham began and Moshe completed. להמשיך את השכינה למטה במתן תורה וכמה שכאן. This is with to bring the Shechina all the way down with Matan Torah and the setting of the Mishkan. וכן הוא בנוגע להבאת הגאולה בפועל. And this is the same with bringing the redemption. שהאדמו"ר הזקן החל, the Alter Rebbe started, ובדור הזה, הדור השביעי לאדמו"ר הזקן, this generation, which is the 7th generation after the Alter Rebbe, תומשך השכינה למטה בארץ בשלמות ובקביעות בגאולה שלמה. Now we're going to have the Shechina go down to earth and be said as the final redemption. ובלשונו שם, in the words of the Rebbe now. והנה זה טובים מכל אחד ואחד מאיתנו, דור השביעי, דכל השביעים חביבין. And it's demanded from each one and one of us, of the 7th generation, and every 7th is beloved. The fact that we are the 7th generation is not because of our choice, and it's not through our service. And in some things you can even say it's not our desire. In any case, every seventh is beloved. We are now in the heels of Mashiach, so to speak. We're at the end of the heel already. And the service to complete bringing down the Shechina, and not just the divine presence, the Shechina, but the essence of the Shechina, the most important part. And where do we want to bring it? In this low word specifically. In the same mimer, he explains the mission. So what does they demand from us? We should know we're in the seventh generation. What is the big deal about it? The seventh generation, his biggest thing is the seventh to the first one. What is the behavior of the first one? It didn't search anything for itself, not even Mesirut Nefesh. Because all he knew was he called in the name of Havaya, the God of the world. This is the example of Avraham Avinu. Avraham came, we read last week, he came from a place they didn't know even godliness there. They didn't know nothing. There was nothing about Judaism, obviously, nothing about Aleph Beit. When Avraham saw, he placed himself on the side to see that the other person, not just he's going to know about God, but he's going to announce. Until now, he knew nothing, but now he's going to scream, Master of the universe. Lo kel ha'olam. Sorry, I apologize. The Rebbe corrects me. Master world, not master of the world. Which would have been that the godliness is one thing and the world is another thing. No. No. Master world. That the godliness rules upon the world, because the world and godliness are one. Master world. It doesn't translate quite as well in English, but that's the idea. And through this service, we're going to continue the most important part of Shechina below in this physical world. So these things became a foundation and an inner soul of the whole great service in all the years, from then until today. And this, there are thousands of shluchim, mivtzayim, etc., etc. What is the purpose of everything that we've been doing in this whole generation since the Rebbe took over as leader? The whole purpose, to complete bringing down the Shechina, specifically where? In the lowest of the low. Whether it's in the other side of the world in Australia or in the bottom of the world in San Francisco. Either way. In this generation specifically, we have a thing that was never there. Shenemad ish mizera David. Stands up a man from the seed of David HaMelech. And he announces, now is the time of the redemption. He wants to fulfill this. And he takes responsibility for doing this. And he walks there in steps that are clear and step by step. As we explained. And we're going to explain in detail even more in the future chapters. אפשר למצוא קווים מקבילים ברורים בין פעולותיו של הרבי לקו הפעולה של משיח, כפי שהרמב"ם מתאר אותו. It's very easy to find parallels between the actions of the Rebbe and the action that Mashiach is supposed to do as the Rambam describes him. ומשנה לשנה פעולות האלה הלכו והתחזקו והתרחבו, and every year these actions get stronger and wider. עד שבשנות הנונים יראו בעולם אירועים דרמטיים, until in the years of the Tafshin Nun, there were things in the world, there were very dramatic things that happened. שהרבי מפרש אותם כפעולת משיח והתגלות משיח. The Rebbe describes them already as the actions of the Mashiach and the revelation of Mashiach. הניסים של מלחמת המפרץ, the miracles of the Gulf War, והתפרקות מעצמה הכפירה הקומוניסטית, and the destruction of the communist regime that went against God in a lot of ways, right? They went against the idea of a monotheistic God. In the words of the Rebbe, it began the action of Mashiach upon the nations. We're going to explain in detail in the future chapters. וככל שהלכו וגברו הפעולות, כך התבררה יותר ויותר משמעותם של העובדות. שאין זה רק נשיא ומנהיג בישראל ככל נשיאים שלפניו. So as we see, as more and more we see the meaning of these facts, this is not just a leader. It's not just a nasi or a leader of the Jewish people like all the nasiim before him. אלא נשיא שמתכוון לתקן את העולם כולו ולהביא גאולה וכל ממש. This is a nasi who plans to correct, to fix the world completely and bring the redemption literally. עד שבקיץ של שנת תשנ"א נחתם פסק דין של רבנים ומורי הוראה, שהרבי הוא גואל ישראל והוא בחזקת משיח. There's the famous letter where many rabbis and teachers in Israel and another of the Jewish people signed that the Rebbe is the redeemer of the Jewish people and he is most likely Mashiach. והחלו חתימות על קבלת מלכותו של מלך המשיח, and they started getting signatures about accepting the kingship of the Melech HaMashiach. וההכרזה, יחי אדוננו מורנו ורבנו מלך המשיח ולמבעד, and the announcement, long live our master, our teacher, our Rebbe, the Melech HaMashiach forever. וגם הרבי מצידו החל לדבר גלויות ומפורשות על שדורנו ומשיח שבדורנו. The Rebbe himself started in a revealed way talking about the leader of our generation, which is like a Mashiach of our generation. וחוזר על כך פעם אחר פעם, בדבר פשוט, and the Rebbe would speak about this again and again in a simple way. והדברים יצאו מוגהים וחתומים בטבעת המלך, על מנת שיתפרסמו בכל העולם, and there was signed, so to speak, with the ring of the king to be spread out to the whole world. As we are right now, we are learning in America and in Australia. The whole world is learning about this. And it's on YouTube, so theoretically anyone across the world can listen to this class. ובהמשך לזה, בשנת תשנ"ג, נעשה לסדר קבוע של הכרזה ושירת יחי אדוננו ואורנו ורבנו מלך המשיח ולמבעד בפני הרבי. And in the year תשנ"ג, it became regular to announce and sing Yechi in front of the Rebbe. וידודו הברור ומכוון, and the Rebbe would move his hand in a way that would indicate that he was encouraging this. כידוע ומפורסם. ובכל העולם יצא כלא דבלא פסיק, שהרבי מלובביץ' הוא מלך המשיח. And the whole world would hear in many places that the Rebbe is the Melech HaMashiach. ומכל זה יחד המסקנה. So from all this we have the result. Mashiach שישנו בכל הדורות, בדורנו זה ימצא בצורה גדולה. Mashiach, there's a Mashiach in every generation, but in our generation, it's in a more revealed way. and גלות מציאותו בתור מלך המשיח, both the fact that there is a reality that there is a Melech HaMashiach, his reality is Melech HaMashiach, ועד ההתחלה מסוימת של גלותו לעין כל על ידי פעולתם, and even a little bit to the third stage through his actions, that there is an idea that he is starting already this process of redemption. ואם נרצה, and if we want, meaning now this is the complete opinion of Rabbi Wolf, the author of the book, נוכל לומר שאפשר לראות כאן מעין מבט לאחור. Perhaps we can see something like a looking back. שבשנת תשנ"ב, כשעניין של משיח נמצא בצורה הכי גלולה וברורה, הרבי מפנה את מבטו לאחור. In the year תשנ"ב, when the idea of Mashiach is in the most revealed way that it was, the Rebbe has us look back. When does he have us look back? לתחילת נשיאותו בשנת תשי"א. He has us look back to the first year where he took leadership. ונותן לנו להבין כעת בצורה חדשה את מה שהיא ראה, and he lets us understand in a new way what happened back then. ולכן אפשר למצוא שבשנת תשנ"ב, הרבי מגדיר את התקופה שמי"א שבט תשי"א ואילך, היום בו הרבי קיבל את כתקופה שהיא בבחינת ימות המשיח. And the Rebbe defines the time from Yud Shvat Tafshin and after, which is, as we know, the day the Rebbe received upon himself the leadership of Chabad, as a period that it is in an attribute of the days of Mashiach. We're going to explain more in detail in the future chapters. The idea is this is days when Mashiach is in the world, and he's starting the actions already before the redemption. And other sicha from the same period, Beshalach Tafshinun specifically is that. The Rebbe hints that Yud Shvat is a day that is connected with the fulfilling the mitzvah of appointing a king. כי גם אם בשעתו כשקרו הדברים עוד לא עמדו על משמעותם, אך עם השנים, כשפעולותיו של הרבי הלכו והתחזקו והלכו והתבררו, אז התבררה למפרע גם משמעותו של יום י"א שבט, שאז נעמד מלך מבית דוד. ומאז נכנסנו במידה מסוימת ליום משיח. So even in the time, in Yud Shvat, it wasn't obvious, but you couldn't understand it. But as the years passed, the action of the Rebbe went and strengthened and went and got more clear. It became understood. Perhaps the day, Yud Shvat, was the day that we entered in some way to the days of Mashiach already then. אם כי גם לאחר כל זה מכמה מקומות אפשר לראות שעדיין אין איחוד זהות שלם בין נשיא דורנו ומשיח תקנו. However, even after all of what we said, we can still see there is no uniting of the identity completely between the leader of our generation to Mashiach, ובפשטות, שבסגנון הרגיל של השיחות הרבי ממשיך להתייחס לנשיא דורנו, ומשיח תזכנו כשגדול נפרעות. And in a way, if you look at the sichot, often the Rebbe would have two different words. There's Nasi Doreinu, the leader of our generation, and Mashiach Tzidkenu. And it seems like the Rebbe would refer to them as two different personas. And the Rebbe did not unite both of them into one person. Which you could consider. ודוק בלשון הרב בשיחת שבת פרשת חיי שרה תשנ"ב בלתי מוגע ממשיך נשיא, and you can see in the words of the Rebbe in שיחת חיי שרה תשנ"ב, ממשיך נשיא דורנו את עבודתו ושליחותו בשלמות עד שיתאחד עם משיח צדקנו תכף ומיד ממש. The leader of our generation continues his service and his shlichut completely until he can unite with Mashiach Tzidkenu תכף ומיד ממש. Unite Mashiach immediately, made it happen immediately. The geulah and the final and complete and true redemption. Meaning, the Rebbe says the unity of our leader, the Rebbe, and Mashiach Tzidkenu will be in the redemption specifically. Mashiach, not before. All right. Summary, סיכום. הרמב"ם מתאר את התגלות משיח בבחינה חיצונית. לפי הפעולות אותו משיח פועל בעולם. So, as we said, the Rambam describes Mashiach how? Through the actions. The Rambam is all about actions. Right? which have halachic meaning. It is obligatory. שלפיהן אפשר לקבוע את ההגדרות של חזקת משיח ומשיח ודאי. Through the Rambam we can decide this is a חזקת משיח, or most likely Mashiach. And this is Mashiach V'dai. This is a certain Mashiach, 100%. But all these actions are only a result and an expression of the inner potential power of Mashiach, so to speak. So, from the true idea. Mashiach, the revelation of Mashiach starts when Mashiach takes upon himself the godly mission and reveals the inner power of the soul of Mashiach. And he recognizes that he himself is Mashiach, right? We said that is the first stage. The first stage is Mashiach is given by God the shlichut, and he recognizes that he is Mashiach. ובלשון הרבי, in the words of the Rebbe, התגלות מציאותו בתור מלך המשיח, the revelation of his reality that he is the מלך המשיח. ובהמשך לזה באות פעולות משיח המתוארים בם, and then you have the actions that are described in the Rambam. ועל דרך המבואר בנוגע למלכות שלמה ושאול, and these, we brought examples in last week's class about the kingship of Shlomo and Shaul. שגם לאחר שנמשכו והוכתרו למלך עדיין לא הנהיגו את העם בפועל. Even after they were anointed and crowned to be a king, they were still not leading the nation in actuality. ואף על פי כן כבר היה להם שם מלך והתייחסו אליהם כמלך. Even though they were not yet ruling the whole Jewish people at that point, they already had the name of a king and they were treated like a king. על שם כוח המלוכה הפנימי. Why? Because they had the inner power or potential of kingship. הרצון למלוכה, the desire to kingship, שהתגלה בנפשם, that was revealed in their soul. על דרך זהו גם בנוגע למלך משיח. Similarly is the idea of מלך המשיח. ואומנם בתחילה בהתגלות במציאותו זה בעיקר גילוי רוחי נפשי שלא כל ישראל מכירים אותו. Though, in the beginning, the revelation of his reality as Mashiach is a very internal thing. It's a revelation, it's an internal thing of the soul that not every Jew would recognize. And only only when he completes his actions, redeems the Jewish people, then everyone will gather by him and recognize that he is in fact Melech HaMashiach. As we talked about in our generation, the Rebbe says in very clear words, we're starting the fulfillment of send, please, with your hand you should send. Right, the prayer of Moshe Rabbeinu that Hashem should send Mashiach. Yeshna lo rak hametziut Mashiach, and the Rebbe again says there's not just in a different sicha, there's not just the reality or the existence of Mashiach, ela gam itgalut Mashiach. There's already the revelation of Mashiach. Shelichora kavanato litgalut ha'emura kan. The idea, what are we talking about? This is the revelation that we talked about. Hitgalut mitzuto b'torah melech Mashiach. The revelation of his reality is the Melech HaMashiach. May be immediately, with Hashem's help, the revelation to everyone that he can complete his ideas. So now we're going to go, there's special iyunim nosafim, additional things about this chapter that were not covered. Ben posek lenavi, the difference, I guess, between a posek and a navi. So, בתוך הפרק הוזכר ההבדל בין התגלות משיח המתוארת ברמב"ם, המתוארת בדרך הלכתית המודדת פעולות החיצוניות של משיח, להתגלות משיח המתוארת בפנימיות התורה. So, within the chapter, we talked about the difference of the revelation that is Mashiach is described in the Rambam, which is a very halachic, these are the actions externally of Mashiach, versus the revelation of Mashiach that is in the inner part of the Torah, which doesn't really, the actions are just a result and a continuation of the revelation of the soul of Mashiach. So we have to, based on this, we have to explain something that is miraculous to some degree. כידוע פעמים רבות חזר רבי והבהיר שבנוגע למשיח אי אפשר לקבוע פסק דין על פי דברי חז"ל. The Rebbe many times said, when we're talking about Mashiach, you cannot do a psak din, you cannot decree halacha based on the words of our sages in the Gemara and Medrash. אלא רק על פי פסק הלכה שברמב"ם. The Rebbe says, no, the only one you can use for psak din halacha is based on the words of the Rambam. שהוא פוסק יחיד בנוגע לסדר הגאולה. He is the only posek about the order of the redemption. ואין אף חולק עליו בזה, and no one disagrees with him that this is the order. ובזה שלל בתכלית הגישה שראתה בהקמת מדינת ישראל והייתה רבות יהודים לארץ הקודש ותחילת הגאולה. And in this, by the way, he said, he takes away the idea that many had, that the fact that the state of Israel, the secular state of Israel was founded, and then tens of thousands of Jews came to the land of Israel, is the beginning of the redemption. Why? Because this is not the order of the redemption, the Rambam Paskin in his book. Why? Because the Rambam says, no, First, you have the Melech Mibeit David. First, you have the king from the house of David. ולמרבה הפלא, כשהרבי עצמו בשנת תשנ"א נ"ב מדבר על כך שעומדים כבר בשעה שהמלך משיח בא, surprise, when the Rebbe in the year Tafshinun talks about the fact that we stand at the time when the moment Melech Mashiach is coming, וישנה גם התגלות המשיח, and there's a revelation of Mashiach, ועוד לשונות, and other similar phrases, כמעט ואינו מזכיר כלל בשיחות האלה, דברי הרמב"ם בהלכות מלכים. The Rebbe doesn't seem to even go back to the thing he says is the most important, which is the halachot of the Melech HaMashiach in the Rambam. Or halachot. ותחת זאת מצטט בעיקר מדרשי חז"ל, בילקוט שמעוני ובדרש רבה. And in fact, the Rebbe would generally bring instead of the Rambam, the sages, or the sage in Yalkut Shimoni and Midrash Rabbah that are going to be talked about in the next chapter. V'divrei Chatam Sofer v'Bartanura, and the words of the Chatam Sofer and the Bartanura, which we talked about in this chapter about Shlomo HaMelech and Shaul. So what is the reason? This is what we're trying to explain. The Rebbe seems to care so much about the Rambam, but in this chapter, we didn't talk about anything that the Rambam was saying really. Why? In this Sichot, the Rebbe talks to us about the revelation of Mashiach. This is the revelation, is specifically godly revelation and a revelation of the soul. The famous prophecy, the time of your redemption has come. That he's going to talk about in the next chapter. And the mission, send, please, with your hand you should send, which Moshe Rabbeinu asks Hashem. This is the prophecy, and this is the mission that he accepted. And he tells us about this. And there's nothing to talk about from the words of the Rambam in Halachot Melachim, because the Rambam doesn't deal with this in a direct way. So this is why the Rebbe brings the Midrashim and the other books, which talks about this revelation. And if we want to find a source for this in the Rambam, you can actually look closer to the halacha of the fundamentals of the Torah in the laws of Nevi'im. In fact, in Tafshin Aleph, the Rebbe goes in depth about the laws of a prophet in the Rambam. And he connects them to the prophecy of the leader of our generation. Here, Mashiach is coming. אמנם במקומות שמדבר על פעולות של משיח כבר ישנם בעולם, על זה ודאי יכול לצאת דברי הרמב"ם. Certainly, when we're talking about the actions of Mashiach that are already in the world, then the Rebbe can quote the words of the Rambam. ועל דרך דבריו בשבת פרשת חיי שרה תשנ"ב, the Rebbe does in שבת חיי שרה תשנ"ב, שמשיח נלחם מלחמות השם, ובכמה מילים כבר מנצח. Mashiach is fighting the wars of Hashem, and the Rebbe says, and in some things he already wins. He's already winning. In other places as well. When we talk about the revelation to everyone through his actions, he immediately quotes the words of the Rambam about the wars of Mashiach and his victories. And we're going to talk more in detail about those specific things in chapter 31. All right. So again, we're going to talk about another concept here. The kingship with the minority of the nation versus the kingship with the majority. We talked about, and this is the concept we talked about earlier last week. So the chapter talks about that when you crown a king, initially the kingship is only revealed to a minority of the nation. And only when the things start moving into actuality, into action, then the kingship is revealed to the whole Jewish people. This is the way it was by Shaul and Shlomo HaMelech. And this is the case by Mashiach. ויש להוסיף ביאור בזה על פי דברי חז"ל אין מלך בלא עם. The famous words of the sages, there is no king without a nation. היינו שבהתגלות המלכות בכל דרגה שבזה תלויה בעם. Every level of the revelation of kingship is dependent on the nation. שאפשר לומר בזה שתי בגלל, there's two explanations you can say about this. א', כמבואר בחסידות שהתעוררות הרצון למלוכה תלויה בעם. So the first thing is the awakening of the desire for kingship is dependent on the nation. שבזה שהם מתבדלים בפני המלך ומוסרים רצונם אליו, הם מעוררים בו רצון למלוכה. By the fact that they nullify themselves before the king and they give over their desire to him, they awaken within him the desire for kingship. כמובן בפשטות, ב' כמובן בפשטות, גם בהנהגת מלוכה ופה תלויה בעם. In a simple way, the leadership of the kingship is also dependent on the king, on the nation. שבזה שהעם נוהגים בפועל על פי הוראותיו ומאפשרים למלך להנהיג מלוכה בפועל. The fact that the nation obeys the king allows him to lead the nation and be the king, literally. אמנם מובן שבעניין הראשון ביטול העם למלך שעל ידי זה מעוררים בו רצון מלוכה אין כל כך נפקא מינה כמה הם העם בטלים למלך. By the first idea, the nullification of the nation to the king, that through it they awaken within him the desire for kingship. It's not so much actual how much the nation is nullified to the king. Is it a little bit or a lot? And theoretically, even a small group of people is enough. Even if a small group of people are nullified to the king, it's enough to awaken within the king this desire for kingship. But when we're talking about literally having him be the king, the more people accept him as the king and recognize him as the king, the more he can rule, right? He can actually be the king. The majority of the nation are the beauty of the king, so to speak, or the adrat melech, the rule of the king, so to speak. The greatness of the king and the rulership of the nation, you need the majority of the nation for that. So now let's go back, bring it to our generation. כדברי הרבי הנ"ל ישנה כבר התגלות במשיח, יש לומר שזה קשור גם כן עם התעוררות הרצון כתוצאה מקבלת המלכות של העם. So, the fact that we have a revelation of Mashiach, we can say this is connected with the awakening of the desire that is a result from the accepting of the kingship by the nation. ומבואר בשיחת שבת פרשת וירא תשנ"ב, וירא that we're on בפנים, כבר נתקיים מה שכתוב, ביקשו את השם אלוקיכם ודוד מלכם. כפי שאמרו בקידוש לבנה דחודש מרחשוון. Already happened what was written. And ask for Hashem your God and for David their king, as they said in Kiddush Levana in the month of Cheshvan. שתוכנו של כתוב זהו בקשת מלכות בית דוד עד המלך משיח. The purpose of this writing is the asking for the kingship of the house of David through the Melech HaMashiach. Right? By the way, if anyone hasn't done Kiddush Levana, today you can still do Kiddush Levana. There's a moon. ואפשר להבין שהאמירה הזו מתייחסת לא רק לקידוש לבנה דחודש מרחשוון. We can understand that this idea is related not just to the Kiddush Levana of the month of Mar Cheshvan, which is now, שלעצמו, שזה הרי ישנו בכל חודש וחודש מעל תמיד, this is in every month. אלא למשמעות המיוחד שניתנה למשפט זה באותו זמן על ידי הפעולות של נשי חב"ד בתחילת שנת תשנ"ב. No, this is a special meaning that was given to this word during the action of the women of Chabad. Yeah. The women of Chabad in the year Tafshinun and the signatures that they about the receiving of the kingship that were brought to the Rebbe. They told the Rebbe, this is the miftzah, and we ask Hashem our God and David our king, and this was spread through the women of Chabad in the whole world. Great class. Thank you. See you. And I just gotta go. Yeah. I love it. The weeks after this, the Rebbe mentioned this pasuk several times in Sichot. עד שכנ"ל בשבת פרשת וירא, רבי אומר, until in Parsha Vayera, which is this week's Parsha, the Rebbe says, כבר נתקיים מה שכתוב. It was already fulfilled. What was written? ובקשו את השם אלוקיכם ואת דוד מלכם. And they asked that Hashem, their God, and David, their king. והמשך לכל זה מבאר בשיחה שישנה כבר התגלות במשיח. And he already says in this שיחה that there is a revelation of Mashiach, as is described in the chapter. ואולי יש לומר שאכן הם הדברים, and perhaps you could say this is what we're talking about. שכיוון שכבר נתקיים מה שכתוב וביקשו, since already was fulfilled the whole idea of and they requested, לכן התעורר במלך רצון למלוכה, ומלך שמו נקרא והתגלה בתור מלך המשיח. This is why, awakened by the king, the desire for kingship, right? And the king was his name, and it was revealed. Melech became his name. It was revealed as the Melech HaMashiach. ואף שהיה זה רק מיעוט העם, even though it was a minority of the nation. הרי בשביל לעורר במלך רצון המלוכה מספיק גם מיעוט העם. When we're talking about getting the king to desire to have the kingship, even a minority of the nation is enough to do that. ובעזרת השם בגאולה שלמה, כשנקבל פני משיח ופועל ממש, אז יהיה זה ברוב העם הדרת מלך. When Mashiach reveals himself and we have the final redemption, this is going to be with the majority of the nation, which will be the grandeur of the king. וראה עוד בעניין זה לקמה בחלק ג' בפרק אודות בקבלת פני משיח זקן, we'll see it in the next part. All right. ערב ואגלה אותך בצמך. Another concept that was talked about in the chapter. As we're going to finish with this, God willing. אודות התגלות משיח בדורנו בכלל, בשנים האחרונות בפרט, about the revelation of Mashiach in our generation in the last year specifically. ויש לקשר זאת לעניין נוסף, שכל השנים הרבי ייחס לסוס נגע לחמיו, הרבי הרייץ. ודווקא בשנים האחרונות, במקביל ויחד עם הביטויים המיוחדים על התגלות משיח, אנחנו מוצאים ביטויים מיוחדים של הרבי על ניסותו שלו עצמו. Throughout most of his of leadership, the Rebbe would always say that the leader is his father-in-law, the Frierdiker Rebbe. But only in the final years did he start speaking about his own leadership. כך בשיחת חיי שרה, תשנ"ב בלתי מוגר אומר הרבי. In the Sikha of Pashulchan, the Rebbe says, Mashiach tilkenu shaliach deshalach nabiat deshalach, kvod kedushat mori vechadmi admur nasi dorenu, ועל דרך זה ההמשך דממלא מקומו של האחרי זה. So the Chayei Sarah, the Rebbe says, Mashiach tilkenu, the messenger that was sent by God, the Frierdiker Rebbe, and then he adds, and based on this, the continuation, and the one who fulfills his place after him. וגם בשיחה מוגד בדברים ברמז, ביאור אודות שיבת קני המנורה, and another שיחה, it came in a hint about the 7 posts to the menorah, שפשוט כוונה לשיבת דורות של נשיא רב"ד, which certainly hints to the 7 generations of Chabad. כולל נשיא דורנו, יהיה שם. אבל דרך זה בשיחת שבת פרשת משפטים תשנ"ב, שכל השיחה סובבת הולכת סביב עניין זה של נשיא דור משיח בדור. ובשהתגלות בעולם, בסוף השיחה נעמדת תיבת מיד, שבדברי הרמב"ם בהלכות תשובה, הבטיחה התורה שסוף ישראל לעשות תשובה, בסוף גלותם מיד מגלים. So that שיחה about תשנ"ב משפטים, the whole שיחה circles around the leader of the generation, the Mashiach of the generation. And there's an idea that in the Hilchot Tshuva, the Rambam talks about that in the end, the Jewish people do tshuva, and immediately they're revealed. וביאר שתורת מיד רומז 3 דורות האחרונים של נשיאות חב"ד, משיח, מנחם, שמו, יוסף ויצחק דובבר. So, מיד hints to the last generation of Chabad. Mashiach, Mem for Mashiach, Menachem Shmo, Menachem is his name. Yod, Yosef Yitzchak, which is the Frierdiker Rebbe, Dalet Dovber. This is the last generation, the 3 generations of Chabad. והכוונה מובנת בפשטות, שהמשך לנשיאתם של אדמו"ר הרש"ב, שלום דובר, ואדמו"ר הרייץ ויצחק בן ציון המשך מנחם שמו. The hint is very clear. We have the Rebbe Rashab Shalom Dovber, the Rebbe Rayat Yosef Yitzchak is his name, and the leadership continues through Mashiach Shemenachem Shmo, whose Menachem is his name. כן, בשיחת שבת פרשת שופטים תשנ"א, נביא שהעיד לו נביא אחר שהוא נביא כפי שהוא בנוגע לנשיא דורנו נמשך בדור של רב על תלמידיו, וראה גם פרשת שבת פרשת So there's also about ideas in the Sikha of Porsche Shoftim, where a prophet that talks about another prophet and says he's a prophet. This is proof enough. And this is the idea of our leader of our generation. And it's continued by the generation after him. And there's other similar things from a different direction. בשנים האחרונות רואים קו ברור בסיוטיו של רבי בראשותם של תאריכים הנוגעים לו עצמו. ודווקא משמעות הכי עמוקות נוגעות לעצמתו יתברך בדוגמאות לזה. In the last years, the Rebbe actually talked about meaning of dates that are concerning to himself. א', י"א ניסן הוא יום הולדתו של רבי. י"א ניסן is obviously the birthday of the Rebbe. ובשיחת י"א ניסן תשמ"ט מבאר הרבי שי"א ניסן בעצם יום לידת עם ישראל כולו. In Tafshim, the Rebbe says that Yud Nisan is actually the day of the birth of the whole Jewish nation. Because the birth of the Jewish nation was in the Exodus of Egypt, which one way you could describe it is the beginning of that was in Yud Nisan. Why? Because Yud Nisan was the day after you had the one who destroys Mitzrayim by their firstborns. And he says Yud Aleph 11 is one above the Atzmut, one above. It talks about. Apologies. Yud Aleph is the essence, that is above the 10th sphere, the revelation of the essence that is connected to the connection to the Jewish people. ובשיחה אחרת נאמן רע בכך שבשעת חנוכה את המשכן נשיא שבט אשר הקריב קורבנו בי"א ניסן. In a different sicha, the Rebbe talks about that at the time of the Mishkan, the 11th tribe was Asher. והרי שבט אשר נתברך בשמן ומשכים מלכים. And Asher was anointed by the oil that you anoint kings. כולל מלך המשיח, including מלך המשיח. ומזה המסקנה שעניין די 11 בניסן ומשיכה דראש בני ישראל למלך המשיח. So from this, the conclusion is the idea of 11th Nisan is the anointing of the head of the Jewish people to be a Melech HaMashiach. Bet, another time. ליל הנישואים של הרבי עם הרבנית הצדקנית עליה השלום, הוא באור ט"ו כסלו, תרפ"ט, ובשנת פרשה ושלח תשנ"ב והרבי שבי"ד וט"ו לחודש השלישי, זהו הזמן של שלמות הנישואים לכנסת ישראל עם הקדוש ברוך הוא. So the day of the marriage of the Rebbe with the Rebbetzin, which is Tetvav Kislev, and the Rebbe explains in the Sicha Vayishlach that Yud Dalet and Tetvav of the third month, this is the time of the completion of the marriage of the Jewish people with Hashem. Which is the idea of God and the Jewish people are all one, which will be in the redemption. Koach Sivan, Tafshin Aleph, Koach Sivan, which is the day the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin came to America. בשיחת כוח סיוון, תשנ"א, ביאר הרבי ברכות שכוח סיוון הוא יום מתן תורה של חצי הכדור התחתון. This is the day that the Torah was given to the lower half of the world. י"א שבט תשנ"א. י"א שבט תשנ"א הוא היום שבו קיבל הרבי נשיאות באופן גלוי לאחר הסתלקותו של הרבי רץ בי' שבט תש"י. ובשיחות של חודש שבט תשנ"ב ביאר הרבי שוב ש11 מורה על עצמותו יתברך שמעל כל 10 ספירות. And again he connects the same thing, י"א Shvat, which is the day that the Rebbe took on leadership. He connects it again to one above 10, which is the Atzmut, that is above the 10th Sefirot. Yudal Shvat ze Yom HaChadasar lechodesh HaChadasar, and Yudal Shvat is the 11th day of the 11th month, which is double 11. Shlemut HaGilush Shel Atzmuto Yitbarech, which is the completion of the revelation of the essence. Umekasher zot gam Yudal Nisan, it connects it to Yudal Nisan. Which is the birth of the attribute of 11, which is a preparation for Yudal Shvat. So the birth of the Rebbe is a preparation for him taking over as the leader, obviously. Which is, as we said, as the Rebbe says, is the revelation of the attribute of 11 in a way of leadership in a revealed way. And the Rebbe also brings, we talk, he talks about I came to my garden, my beloved, my sister, my bride, it talks about bringing the Shechina in the temple. This is the first mimer that the Rebbe spoke when he accepted leadership. Which is the purpose of it is to continue the Shechina in the whole world. ואומר כך המדרש, אמר רבי מנחם, לגן אין כתיב כאן לגני. And the Midrash says Rabbi Menachem to the garden, it doesn't write here, but to my garden. ומבאר הרבי ששמו של רבי מנחם רומז על שלמות השראת השכינה למטה, על ידי גוי האחרון ששמו מנחם. The Rebbe says, the name of Rabbi Menachem hints that the completion of the revelation of the Shekhinah below will be through the final Redeemer, whose name is Menachem. And all, לכאורה אפשר לראות כל עניין הנ"ל בקשר לאותו עניין של גאולת משיח כנ"ל, היינו שכל מתברר מהו הרבי הנשיא, כך מתברר בפשוטה עמוקה של הימים הקשורים עמו. And you can see that the more the Rebbe revealed the revelation of Mashiach within him, the more we can understand who the Rebbe is, and he's the leader, and we can understand the deep meaning of even the days that are connected to him. I'm going to finish because it's connected to Lech Lecha. Literally one paragraph. ויש לקשר זאת גם בפירוש אדמו"ר הזקן על הפסוק לך לך על הארץ אשר אראך אראה ואגלה אותך בעצמך. The Pirush of Alter Rebbe about the pasuk, go for yourself to the land which I shall show, which is the parsha of the week that we just finished on Shabbat. God, I shall show you and I shall reveal you yourself. שהקדוש ברוך הוא מכריז ומפרסם מהי מהות האמיתית של היהודי ובעניינו שמתגלית מהותו האמיתית של סידורנו. והנה לשון אדמו"ר הזקן היא אראה ואגלה אותך בעצמך. I shall show and I shall reveal you with yourself. But the Rebbe also brings the words of the Mitzvah Rebbe, with your mahut and with your essence. And he brings the words in Tzemach Tzedek, with yourself and your essence. So he hints the real thing that can be revealed by a Jew is his essence and his true existence, true reality, his purpose. Which is one with the essence of the infinite one. And when the Rebbe explains his own Yamim Tovim, he explains a deeper meaning of them as that are days that are connected to God and his essence. Bezrat Hashem, we finished chapter 29 and the additional stuff. We will continue next week, Bli Neder, Monday night, as always, and we will get to do Kol Mevaser, the revelation of Mashiach in the Midrash of Chazal. Shkoach, and all the best, and we merit to see Mashiach immediately. Techef umiyad mamash.